I found a kid. I was in a hurry, so I called it in. Yeah, 911? I got a kid here. You better find her parents, fast. I don't have a lot of patience. A few minutes later, 12 SWAT vans had me surrounded. The captain in charge, a woman with a warrior's posture, pointed her rifle at me, but her eyes were a frantic mix of shock and confusion. The moment she got a clear look at my face, her hands trembled and she lowered her weapon. To my astonishment, she snapped to attention and threw me a sharp salute. The 9th Division, former head instructor, Cole Matthews. Chapter 1, I found the kid on the side of the road. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, pretty as a porcelain doll. She was wearing a mud-stained pink princess dress and clutching a worn-out teddy bear, huddled in the corner of an alley. She wasn't crying, just shivering. Next to her lay a woman, probably her mother. A single, razor-thin line of blood was carved across her neck. She wasn't breathing. I checked the woman's carotid artery. After confirming she was gone, my eyes shot back to the little girl. Her big eyes were vacant, like her soul had been scooped out. I took off my jacket, wrapped it around her small, cold body, and lifted her into my arms. "It's okay," I murmured. "I've got you." She didn't react, just hugged the teddy bear tighter. I had to get out of there. Now, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The call connected almost instantly. A calm male voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? Cradling the child, I scanned the street beyond the alley, keeping my language as clipped and urgent as possible. Yeah, 911. I have a kid here. That's right, the kid is with me. I don't have the patience to wait around. Contact her parents and do it fast. It'll be better for everyone that way. You get me? I hung up. I didn't mention the dead woman. I knew that whoever killed her would be back for the child soon. Calling the cops was the best way to muddy the waters to buy myself some time. I glanced down at the little girl in my arms. Still no reaction, like she was just an exquisite doll. I held her close, walked quickly out of the alley, and vanished into the downtown crowd. But I had underestimated the response time and efficiency of modern law enforcement. It only took 3 minutes. The piercing wail of sirens converged from all directions. The intersection where I stood was instantly locked down by 12 black SWAT assault vehicles and a dozen more squad cars, creating an impenetrable barricade. Doors flew open in unison. Heavily armed SWAT officers poured out, moving with practiced speed, forming a tactical perimeter with me at its dead center. The dark muzzles of their rifles were aimed at me from every angle. Pedestrians screamed in terror and scattered. I couldn't help but be impressed. Is this what public safety looks like these days? All this for picking up a kid? I held the girl and stood my ground, perfectly still. I knew that one wrong move, one twitch, could earn me a bullet. Chapter 2, a female officer in a tactical vest, her posture ramrod straight, stepped out from behind the line. Her face was streaked with camo paint, leaving only a pair of eyes as sharp as a hawk's. She held a rifle, the barrel aimed squarely at my forehead. "Put the child down. Hands on your head and get on the ground now." Her voice was crisp and carried an unquestionable tone of command. I didn't move. I just watched her calmly. I said, "Put the child down," she barked, her finger resting on the trigger. The little girl in my arms, likely terrified by the chaos, began to tremble violently. I frowned, gently patting her back to soothe her. My gaze drifted from the officer's piercing eyes down to her right hand gripping the rifle. The crook of her thumb had the thin, hard callus of a career shooter. But just below it, near her wrist, was a faint scar, shaped like a crescent moon. My eyes flickered with recognition. "Eva Rostova?" I asked, my voice low, testing the name. The SWAT captain's body went rigid. The hand holding the rifle trembled, an almost imperceptible movement. She stared at my face, her eyes boring into me as if trying to see through to the bone. The air around us felt like it had turned to ice. The other SWAT officers sensed their captain's hesitation, but without orders, they held their positions, rifles at the ready. Seconds ticked by like hours. Rostova's expression shifted from cold vigilance to stunned disbelief, and finally, to a kind of horrified awe. "You?" Her voice was raspy. I pulled at the corner of my mouth, offering a smile that wasn't particularly friendly. "What? Did you forget everything from that 50-mile forced march in boot camp? You don't recognize your head instructor anymore?" The words head instructor hit her like a physical blow. Rostova's pupils contracted. The memories of sweat, tears, and endless, grueling torment came flooding back. The memory of the man who was a devil on the training grounds, but who always managed to pull them back from the brink of death. The man who single-handedly designed every selection course for the 9th Division. The man everyone secretly called the Reaper. It was him. It was really him. He was leaner than he was 3 years ago, and his eyes carried a new layer of weariness. But that face, that eternally unflappable demeanor, was seared into her memory. Crack! With a sound as sharp as a gunshot, Rostova snapped her rifle to her side, straightened her body, and slammed her heels together. In front of everyone, she delivered the sharpest, most forceful salute of her life. Her voice, trembling with emotion but still booming with authority, cut through the silence. 9th Division, Strike Team 3 Captain Eva Rostova. Reporting to the head instructor, sir. The entire street fell dead silent. Every SWAT officer was stunned. They looked at their captain, then back at me. This guy in a plain jacket who looked like a homeless drifter they'd mistaken for a kidnapper, and their minds went blank. Head instructor? What kind of head instructor could make the famously iron-willed Captain Rostova perform that kind of salute in the middle of an active operation? Chapter 3. All units stand down. Rostova ignored the bewildered looks from her team and barked her orders. Lower your weapons. Disengage. This is not a drill. Though confused, the SWAT officers obeyed instantly, their rifles lowering in unison. The circle of guns dissolved. Rostova strode over to me, her eyes on the little girl in my arms. She lowered her voice. Instructor, what the hell is going on? Found her on the street, I said, keeping it simple. You found her? Rostova's brow furrowed. Then the 911 call. I made it. Her expression grew even more complicated. She opened her mouth to ask another question, then shut it. She knew this man's methods better than anyone. Everything he did for a reason. You didn't ask questions. You just executed. We need to move. I cut her off. This area isn't secure. Understood. Rostova immediately turned and spoke into her radio. Alpha and Bravo teams, clear a path. Escort the target vehicle. Charlie and Delta, hang back. Watch for any hostiles. A few minutes later, I was in the back of a black command vehicle, the child still in my arms. Rostova was driving herself. The SUV pulled into traffic, followed at a discreet distance by several unmarked cars. Take me to your most secure location, I said from the back seat. Yes, sir. In the quiet of the truck, the little girl must have finally felt a sense of safety. Her tense body relaxed, and she fell into a deep sleep against my chest. I watched her peaceful face, my own expression softening. Instructor, Rostova said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. You're back. Not back. Just passing through, I said flatly. I'll be gone once my business is finished. And the girl, the daughter of an old friend. Rostova understood immediately. For Cole Matthews to call someone a friend, he could only mean one thing, a comrade, a fallen comrade. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel, and a heavy silence filled the vehicle. Half an hour later, we pulled into a secure compound on the outskirts of the city. It was the Riverbend PD's SWAT training facility and headquarters, with the highest level of security. I stepped out with the sleeping child. Rostova had already arranged for a private room. Instructor, you and the child will be completely safe here. Get some rest. I need to go handle the cleanup from a call. Hold on. I stopped her. Give me a secure, encrypted phone. I need to make a call. Rostova paused for a second, then nodded. Right away. Soon, a black, unmarked military-grade satellite phone was delivered to the room. I shut the door and dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang only once before someone picked up. Who is this? An old but powerful voice demanded. It's me. Cole. The line was silent for a full 10 seconds. You're alive? The voice was thick with shock. I'm alive, I said. Hawk is down. I have his daughter, Annie. Ghost people are looking for her now. Ghost? The old voice sharpened, filled with a sudden, cold fury. That traitor! I need authorization, I said, getting straight to the point. Full operational authority over the Riverbend Police Department. Done. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. Highest priority. I'll notify Riverbend Command immediately. From this moment on, all RDP assets, including Rostova's SWAT team, are under your command. Whatever you need, you ask. Good. I ended the call and walked to the window, watching the SWAT officers training in the yard below, their bodies glistening with sweat. Ghost. It's time to settle our accounts from 3 years ago. Chapter 4, Riverbend Police Department, Chief's Office. Chief Miller was hunched over his desk, nodding obsequiously into his phone, his forehead beaded with cold sweat. Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely, Director. You have my word. We will give him our full cooperation. We will execute your directive without question. When he hung up, Miller slumped back in his leather chair, the back of his dress shirt soaked through. The call had come directly from Washington, D.C., from a man he had only ever seen on the news. The order itself was terrifying. The entire Riverbend PD, including its most elite SWAT unit, was to follow the orders of a man named Cole Matthews. Unconditionally, unquestioningly, cooperate with his every action. Cole Matthews, Miller muttered to himself. Who in God's name is he? He buzzed his secretary. Give me a report right now. I want to know if a man named Cole Matthews was brought in by SWAT this afternoon. Meanwhile, at the SWAT compound, the atmosphere in Captain Rostova's office was tense. Her most trusted lieutenants were gathered around her, their faces etched with disbelief. Captain, is that guy, Cole, really your former head instructor? A burly officer named Rizzo asked. What's his story? What kind of instructor has the clearance to get a direct order from D.C.? Rostova shook her head. His clearance level is beyond what you can imagine. All you need to know is that from now on, his order is the highest order. Just as she finished speaking, the red phone on her desk rang shrilly. Rostova's expression hardened. She snatched it up. Chief Miller's frantic voice came through the line. Captain Rostova, are you with a man named Cole Matthews right now? Yes, Chief. I am. The order just came down from D.C. Miller's voice was tinged with awe. As of this moment, you and your entire unit are to report directly to Mr. Matthews. Fulfill his every request. Understood, Rostova replied, her voice firm. She hung up, took a deep breath, and pushed open her office door, heading straight for the room where I was staying. But as she approached my door, a primal sense of danger made the hair on her arms stand on end. Get down, she screamed, diving to the side. At the exact same instant, thwip, 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 the dull cough of suppressed gunfire erupted, and the wall where she had been standing was pocked with deep bullet holes. Sniper, using a custom, silenced rifle. Alarms blared across the compound. Contact! Hostiles in the perimeter. The door to my room was kicked open. I was already moving, rolling across the floor with a now-awake Annie in my arms, taking cover behind a concrete wall. Bullets zipped past where my head had been, sparking against the plaster. Protect the girl, I yelled to Rostova as she scrambled inside. She understood instantly, laying down, covering fire to give me a window. Outside, several black-clad figures vaulted over the perimeter fence like specters. Their movements were impossibly fast, their weapons all fitted with suppressors. Their objective was clear, my room. They're fast, I muttered. My eyes turned to ice. I shoved Annie into the arms of a SWAT officer rushing to our position. Keep her safe. Before the words were out of my mouth, I exploded in emotion like a cornered panther. No weapon, ide improvisa. I grabbed a heavy wooden chair and charged an incoming hostile, swinging it like a club. Chapter 5, the black-clad killer clearly hadn't expected such a ferocious counterattack. He instinctively raised his arm to block. Crack! A sickening crunch of bone breaking. The chair splintered into pieces, and a man's arm bent at an unnatural angle. He let out a muffled grunt of pain, but I gave him no time to recover. I closed the distance in a single step, my elbow striking his temple like a steel hammer. The man collapsed without another sound. The entire exchange was fluid, brutal, and blindingly fast. A second killer nearby reacted, turning his weapon on me. But I was faster. I kicked the gun from his hands, my body following the motion, and delivered a precise knife-hand strike to his throat. G.U.H. He clawed at his neck, his eyes rolling back in his head as he crumpled to the floor, convulsing. 2 hostiles down in 2 seconds. The SWAT officers who witnessed it were frozen in shock. They'd seen tough guys before, but not like this. This wasn't a fight. It was a slaughter. What are you waiting for? Return fire. Rostova was the first to snap out of it, her voice roaring through the chaos. Gunfire erupted. The SWAT team used cover, engaging in a fierce firefight with the assassins outside. The enemy's fire was heavy and their tactics highly disciplined. They were professionals. I didn't stay in the fight. I quickly checked the two men on the floor. On the back of their necks, they both had the same tattoo. A scorpion with a single drop of blood on its stinger. Blood scorpions, I hissed. Ghost's most elite kill team. He already knew I was here. Instructor, Rostova yelled at me while firing. Their fire is too heavy. We're pinned down. Give me your sidearm, I said, holding out my hand. Without hesitation, Rostova tossed me her pistol. I caught it, checked the magazine, and looked at her. Cover me. 3 seconds. You got it. Rostova unleashed a sustained burst of fire, forcing the attackers to take cover. That was my opening. I launched myself forward, not toward cover, but in an impossible, zigzagging sprint directly at the heaviest concentration of enemy fire. Bullets rained around me, tearing up the ground, but not one touched me. It was an evasive pattern I had perfected in the crucible of real-world firefights. As I ran, the pistol in my hand spoke. Pop, pop, pop. 3 shots. Each one found its mark, striking a hidden killer with lethal precision. With each shot, a man fell. The enemy's wall of fire instantly faltered. Seeing their advantage crumble, the remaining assassins began to fall back. Leaving so soon, I gave a cold smirk and started to pursue. But they were prepared. Several smoke grenades were tossed, and the area was instantly blanketed in a thick white fog. By the time it cleared, they were gone. The entire engagement, from start to finish, had lasted less than 5 minutes. The compound was a wreck, the air thick with the smell of cordite and blood. Rostova and her team rushed over, staring at the bodies of the dead assassins, and the two I had incapacitated. She was too stunned to speak. She knew Cole was good, but she never imagined he was this good. Interrogate them, I said, handing her back the pistol, my voice calm. See what you can get. I turned and walked toward the officer holding Annie. The little girl was terrified, her face pale, but she wasn't crying. She just clutched her teddy bear, her wide eyes fixed on me. I walked over, knelt down, and gently stroked her hair. It's over now. My voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that seemed to calm the world. She looked at me. Her little lips, pressed tight, finally trembled. A sob escaped, and then she burst into tears. Chapter 6, the interrogation room, was lit by a single, harsh bulb. The 2 captured Blood Scorpion members were tied to chairs, their lips sealed. No matter how Rostova and her team questioned them, they remained silent. Instructor, they've had professional anti-interrogation training. They won't say a word, Rostova reported, walking into the break room, her face etched with fatigue. I was gently wiping Annie's face with a damp cloth. The little girl had cried herself to sleep, but her brow was still furrowed in a troubled dream. I expected as much, I said without looking up. So what's our move? We're on the back foot if we don't know where they're based. They'll come to us, I said, putting the cloth down and finally looking at Rostova. That's Ghost style. If the first strike fails, a second is already on its way. He's more desperate than I am. Ghost, he's their leader? I nodded, deciding to give her some intel. His name is Julian Vance. Codename Ghost. He used to be my second in command. Rostova's eyes widened. 3 years ago, during an overseas operation, he sold out the entire team for personal gain. 7 of our men died, including Hawk. I was the only one who made it out. My voice was unnervingly calm, as if telling someone else's story. But Rostova could feel the volcanic rage simmering just beneath the surface. Hawk, he was Annie's father? Yeah. His name was Markham. Best spotter in the division. I paused. This time, Ghost's target is Annie. More specifically, something Hawk left for her. What is it? I don't know. I shook my head. But whatever it is, it's enough to burn Ghost to the ground. Rostova was silent. She finally understood the kind of storm she'd walked into. This wasn't a standard police operation. This was a war between 2 of the world's most elite operatives. Instructor, you can still walk away. I told her, my eyes locking onto hers. This is beyond your jurisdiction. Rostova straightened her spine, her gaze unwavering. Sir, there's no walk away in the 9th Division's vocabulary. Hawk died a hero serving this country. We have a duty to protect his daughter. A flicker of approval showed in my eyes. All right, I stood up. In that case, hand your team over to me. I'm going to teach them how to deal with wolves, and I'm going to do it fast. Yes, sir. That afternoon, on the SWAT compound's training field, Rostova's 30 best officers stood in formation. I faced them, my gaze like ice. Everything you thought you knew, everything you've ever been taught, forget it. From now on, you'll learn only 3 things: how to shoot, how to kill, and how to stay alive. My words sent a chill through every officer. They could feel a presence radiating from me that was entirely different from their captains. It was a palpable, lethal aura, the kind that's forged only in the hell of real-world combat. Now, everyone, full gear, 20-mile run. Move out. I gave them no time to process. The first command was given. The crucible had begun. Chapter 7, the training was brutal. I used the same methods I'd used to select recruits for the 9th Division, relentlessly pushing the SWAT officers to their physical and psychological breaking points. Forced marches with full packs, no-holds-barred combat drills, live-fire stress tests. Every exercise was designed to shatter their limits. After just one day, several of them had collapsed on the training field. Instructor, they can't take much more of this, Rostova said, her voice laced with concern as she watched her team being run into the ground. On the battlefield, does the enemy care if you can't take it? I retorted coldly. Rostova was speechless. Ghost people could hit us again at any moment. I don't have time to play games. They either get stronger or they get dead. There is no third option. My words were a bucket of ice water, snapping Rostova back to reality. She gritted her teeth, turned to her exhausted team, and yelled, "Get on your feet. Anyone who stays down is out of my unit." Just then, a technician came sprinting across the field. "Captain, Instructor, we've got a situation." He held out a tablet. On the screen was an incoming encrypted video call. "It's Ghost," I said, my eyes narrowing. I took the tablet and accepted the call. A face obscured by a silver mask appeared on the screen, the background completely dark. Well, my old friend Cole. It's been a long time." A distorted, mocking voice came through the speaker. "Julian," I said, using his real name. "Still so blunt," Ghost chuckled. "I hear you found Hawk's little brat. I'd advise you to hand her over. Otherwise, I can't guarantee some interesting things won't happen." His tone was light, but the threat was anything but. "For example," he said, and the screen switched to a live security feed of the Metroplex Mall, the busiest shopping center in Riverbend City. It was packed with people. "See that fountain in the main plaza?" Ghost's voice returned. "I've left a little gift underneath it. About 100 pounds of C4. Enough to send the entire mall, and everyone in it, straight to heaven." The color drained from Rostova's face. "You wouldn't dare," she roared. "Hell, watch me," Ghost laughed. "You have 1 hour. I want to see the girl at the abandoned steel mill on the east side. And remember, Cole, you come alone. If you try any tricks, or call in a bomb squad." He didn't need to finish. The image of them all was replaced by a large, red digital timer. 60:00. The call ended. "Son of a bitch." Rostova slammed her fist on the table. "Get units to the mall now. Evacuate everyone. Get EOD over there," she yelled at her team. "It's too late for that," I said, shaking my head. "What?" "It's a diversion. A classic divide and conquer," I analyzed calmly. "He knows we'll have to respond to the bomb threat. It'll tie up the majority of our resources. His real target is still Annie. So what do? We can't just ignore the lives of everyone at the mall." Rostova said, her voice frantic. "We won't," I said, my eyes sharp. "We split up. You take a team to the mall. Evacuate as many people as you can, but the bomb is a trap. Tell Iodi not to touch it. I'm going to pay him a visit." "No, that's suicide," Rostova immediately shot back. "He's telling you to go alone. It's an ambush, a kill box." "Exactly," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "Which is why I need your team to be my eyes." Chapter 8, the plan was set in motion in minutes. Rostova took half the team and sped toward the Metroplex Mall to begin a mass evacuation and lock down the scene. The other half, under my remote command, established a wide, silent perimeter around the abandoned steel mill on the east side. All sniper teams establish overwatch on high ground. Assault teams split into 3 fire teams. Infiltrate from the north, west, and south. Once I'm inside, you'll cut off all escape routes. Remember, my signal will be 3 quick shots. On that signal, you move in, hard and fast. Inside the command van, I issued a calm, steady stream of orders over the radio. I broke the SWAT unit into small, tactical cells, weaving an invisible net that was tightening around the target. Rostova's elite officers had never seen tactical coordination this precise, this efficient. Every man, every rifle, had a designated position and a roll time to the second. This wasn't just tactics, it was an art form. Instructor, are you sure you want to go in alone? Rizzo's concerned voice came over the comms. Don't worry about me. I'm hard to kill. I check my gear. 1 pistol, 2 spare magazines, and a combat knife. It would be enough. Instructor, Rostova's voice cut in. We're starting evacuations at the mall. But Yodi swept the fountain. There's no bomb. Just as I thought, I said with a cold smirk. It was all playing out exactly as I predicted. Ghost's only goal was to lure me out. Continue the evacuation. Stay sharp, I told Rostova. You too. Be careful. Her voice was filled with worry. Roger. I cut the comms and checked my watch. 10 minutes left on Ghost's deadline. I pushed open the van door and melted into the night. The abandoned steel mill on the east side. It was a sprawling complex of rust-eaten buildings and towering smokestacks that looked like silent, monstrous beasts under the moonlight. I moved like a phantom, slipping inside the perimeter undetected. The main factory floor was cavernous and empty, save for a few dim work lights that cast menacing shadows over the derelict machinery. The air was thick with the smell of rust and old oil. It was quiet, too quiet. I didn't use the main entrance. I slipped through a broken window, landing without a sound. In the center of the vast space, a man stood with his back to me. He was tall, dressed in black. You came, Cole, he said, his voice echoing in the empty hall. He didn't turn around. Where's Annie? I asked, my voice flat. Patience, he said, slowly turning to face me. He wasn't wearing a mask. A familiar face emerged from the shadows. Julian Vance. A smug, triumphant smile was plastered on his face. 3 years. You haven't changed a bit, he said, spreading his arms wide. You see the grand welcome I've prepared for you? Do you like it? As he spoke, a series of clicks echoed from above. Click, click, click. On the second-floor catwalks that ringed the factory floor, dozens of high-powered flashlights suddenly blazed alive, their beams all converging on me. From the darkness, the barrels of countless rifles emerged. I was surrounded. Chapter 9. I told you to come alone. Julian's smile widened. But you just couldn't help yourself. You brought friends. He gestured vaguely toward the outside of the factory. My men have eyes on your little cop buddies. One word from me, and they all turn into Swiss cheese. My face remained a mask of indifference. Did you really think I'd bring Annie here? I shot back. Julian's smile froze. What are you talking about? The moment you used the mall as a threat, I knew you wouldn't have her here, I said, my voice dangerously calm. This place, this is the tomb you prepared for me. You wouldn't want Annie to see me die. She's your last piece of leverage. So, I paused, locking eyes with him. She's somewhere else. Somewhere you think is completely secure, and from where you can move her a moment's notice. The color drained from Julian's face. He was realizing that even in this perfect kill box, Cole's mind was still working, still 2 steps ahead. Every move he made seemed to be something Cole had already anticipated. You're clever, Julian said, his voice turning cold. But clever men are usually the first to die. What does it matter if you figured it out? You're still trapped. Am I? A slow smile spread across my face. I raised my hand and pointed to a nearly invisible earpiece. Rostova, you getting all this? Loud and clear, Instructor. Rostova's voice crackled back instantly. Lock onto our friend's cell signal. Find me where he's holding her. In that split second, Julian's face contorted in panic. He fumbled for his phone, trying to power it off, but it was too late. Sir, I have a lock. A technician's excited voice came through my earpiece. It's pinging from the West End docks. A freighter called the Sea Wolf. Excellent, I said, my smile widening as I looked at the now ashen-faced Julian. The game is just getting started. You're dead. Julian was completely unhinged now, his plan unraveling before his eyes. He threw his arm down in a furious gesture. Light him up. Kill him. But just as the order left his lips, I was already moving. I raised my pistol toward the ceiling and fired 3 quick shots. Bang, bang, bang. The signal. The signal for the main assault. Chapter 10. The moment the signal was given, a deafening crash echoed through the mill. Boom! The massive factory doors were smashed inward as an armored SWAT vehicle plowed right through them. A flood of SWAT officers poured into the building. Police! Don't move! Simultaneously, windows shattered around the factory as black-clad figures rappelled down from the roof, the assault teams that had been waiting in the wings. In an instant, Julian and his men were caught in a counter-ambush. How was this possible? Julian stared in disbelief. He had spotters outside. How did this army of cops sneak up on him completely undetected? He couldn't know that the first lesson I taught the SWAT team was counter-surveillance and infiltration. His spotters had been silently eliminated by snipers half an hour ago. It's over, Julian, I said, advancing on him 1 step at a time. Over? I don't think so. A crazed look entered Julian's eyes. He ripped a small remote detonator from his vest. I'll admit, I underestimated you, Cole, but I came prepared with a parting gift of my own. He slammed his thumb down on the red button. Everyone get down. I roared, diving for cover. But the expected, earth-shattering explosion never came. The factory remained silent. Julian stared at the detonator, confused. He mashed the button again and again. Nothing. Impossible, he muttered. I wired this whole place with enough explosives to... Looking for this? A voice called down from the second-floor catwalk. Everyone looked up. It was Rizzo, the big SWAT officer. In his hand, he was holding a bundle of detonators and wires that he'd clearly ripped out. He gave Julian a wide, toothy grin. Sorry about that. Figured I'd disarm it while I was sneaking in. Julian was utterly defeated. His 2 perfectly laid traps had both failed. Take them, I commanded. Gunfire erupted, but this time it was a disciplined, overwhelming volley from the SWAT team. Julian's men were professionals, but they were no match for the superior numbers and firepower of the police. They were cut down or forced to surrender one by one. Seeing it was over, Julian turned to flee through a back exit. But I wasn't about to let him go. I closed the distance in a heartbeat and drove a powerful kick into the middle of his back. Julian flew through the air like a broken doll and crashed to the concrete floor. I walked over, planted my boot on his hand, and picked up the pistol he dropped. I pressed the muzzle against his forehead. It's finished, Julian. Chapter 11. No, not yet. Even pinned to the ground, a twisted smile spread across Julian's face. You think you've won, Cole? You're forgetting one thing. I still have the girl. Your team may have found a sea wolf, but can they get on board? He spat, his confidence returning. My top lieutenant, Scorpion, is on that ship with enough firepower to start a war. The hold is filled with flammable chemicals. If your men try to storm the ship, I guarantee the entire dock will go up in flames. You think I'm afraid to take you all with me? Rostova and her team moved in, their faces paling at his words. Instructor, she began. I ignored Julian's ranting, speaking calmly into my comms. Rostova, what's the situation at the docks? Her voice came back, strained. Sir, we've reached the West End docks and have a visual on the Sea Wolf. But he's right. They have heavy machine guns, and the ship is loaded with hazardous materials. We can't risk a direct assault. Understood. I turned off the comms and looked down at Julian with a pitying smile. Julian, you're just like you were 3 years ago. Always have to have an escape plan. But did you ever consider that your escape plan might just be your undoing? Julian frowned. What are you talking about? I didn't answer him. Instead, I looked up past the shattered ceiling of the factory into the dark night sky. Right on time, I murmured. As if on cue, a deep, thunderous roar grew in the distance, rapidly approaching from the heavens. Everyone, including Julian, instinctively looked up. Cutting through the night sky were 3 massive, dark silhouettes, flying in formation at incredible speed, heading directly for the docks. They were attack helicopters. Are those? Rizzo stammered, pointing at the sky. The 9th Division's Air Assault Unit, I said calmly. The blood drained from Julian's face, replaced by pure, abject terror. He knew better than anyone what that name meant. They were the best of the best, recruited from every branch of the Special Forces, flying the most advanced military hardware on the planet. They were quite literally death from above. No, impossible. Julian's voice trembled. How could they be here? They took off from a base outside DC the moment I made my first call. I looked down at him, my eyes devoid of hatred, only a cold finality. Your biggest mistake, Julian, wasn't betraying the team. It was coming back to this country. And it was going after someone you shouldn't have touched. Now, any last words? Chapter 12, West End Docks. Aboard the freighter Seawolf, a man known as Scorpion directed his mercenaries, laying down a hail of suppressing fire on the police positions at the pier. Boss, there are more cops showing up every minute. We can't hold them off forever, one of his men yelled. What are you scared of? Scorpion, a bald man with a face like a slab of concrete, bellowed as he fired a light machine gun. The chief said they won't storm the ship. We just wait for his signal, then we blow this whole harbor to hell and take these bastards with us. Just then, another mercenary pointed a trembling finger at the sky, his face a mask of terror. What is that? Scorpion looked up. Hanging in the air above his ship, like three great birds of prey, were three black, menacing attack helicopters. They hovered in a perfect triangular formation. The side doors of the choppers slid open, and thick ropes dropped to the deck. Figures in black tactical gear descended, sliding down the ropes with blinding speed. It's the 9th Division. The blood drained from Scorpion's face. He tried to shout an order to open fire, but the helicopters were faster. Thump, 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 thump. The helicopter's chin-mounted cannons opened up. The rounds didn't hit the men, but instead precisely targeted their weapons, shattering rifles and machine guns in their hands. In a split second, Scorpion and his entire crew were disarmed. The soldiers who had landed on the deck moved like a storm, swarming the mercenaries. In less than a minute, every hostile was subdued. The team leader walked up to the terrified Scorpion and lifted him off the ground with one hand. Where's the child? Scorpion, trembling, pointed toward the captain's cabin. The soldier kicked the door open. Inside, Annie was huddled in a corner, a female mercenary holding a pistol to her head. Don't come any closer. I'll shoot. The woman screamed hysterically. The soldier didn't speak. He simply raised his hand. A flash of steel shot through the air. A throwing knife was now embedded in the woman's forehead. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she collapsed. Annie was safe. The entire operation was streamed from a drone to the tablet in my hands. Back at the factory, Julian watched the screen, his body going limp, his eyes filled with the blackness of utter despair. Every escape route, every contingency had been cut off. He had lost. Completely and irrevocably. Chapter 13, Why? Julian lay on the floor, his gaze empty as he looked up at me. Why are you always one step ahead? It was like this 3 years ago, and it's the same now. Because your soul is rotten. I walked over and crouched down in front of him, looking him in the eye. You're a brilliant tactician, Julian. Your skills are top tier, but you have a fatal flaw. You're greedy. You want too much. Power, money. You'd sell out your country, your own brothers in arms, to get it. I picked up a shard of broken glass from the floor, letting it catch the dim light. What I want is much simpler. I just want justice for my brothers. My voice was quiet, but each word landed like a hammer blow on Julian's conscience. His expression shifted from despair to a venomous hatred. Justice? Ha ha ha. He began to laugh, a wild, unhinged sound. Don't act so high and mighty, Cole. You and I, we're the same. We're monsters who crawled out of the same hell. You think you're some kind of saint? You've killed more people than I have. You're right, I admitted freely. I've killed more people than you. But the people I killed deserve to die. The people you killed were your brothers. I drove the shard of glass into his shoulder. Arp! Julian screamed in agony. That one was for Hawk. I ripped the glass out and plunged it into his other shoulder. And that one is for the other 6. Blood soaked through his black shirt. His face was a twisted mask of pain. The SWAT officers surrounding us looked away, unable to watch. Only Rostova stood her ground, her face unreadable. She knew this was a debt Cole had to collect himself. Kill me. Julian gasped, his voice weak. If you have the guts, just kill me. Kill you? That would be letting you off easy. I stood up, looking down at him. You'll answer for your crimes in a court of law. You're going to spend the rest of your miserable life rotting in a supermax prison. Every day and every night, You'll live with the memory of betraying your team. You'll drown in your regret and your fear. That is the only punishment you deserve. I turned my back on him and walked away. SWAT officers moved in and hauled his broken body out of the factory. The hunt, 3 years in the making, was finally over. Chapter 14. The next day, a military transport plane touched down at a secure airfield on the outskirts of Riverbend. An old man with a full head of white hair, dressed in a simple but severe suit, descended the ramp, flanked by several aides. Chief Miller and Captain Rostova were waiting on the tarmac. "Director," they both saluted sharply. The old man nodded, his gaze skipping past them to me. I was standing a short distance away, holding Annie. "Cole," he said, his voice raspy with age and emotion. I walked over with Annie in my arms. "Director Croft." This man was the founder of the 9th Division, my former commander. His eyes went from me to the little girl in my arms, who looked so much like his fallen protege, Markham. The old man's eyes reddened. "You did good work, son," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Just doing my duty." "We've taken custody of Vance and his network," Croft said. "The web of conspiracy he was a part of will follow it to the end. No one will be spared." I nodded. "Did you find what Hawk left behind?" Croft asked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a micro SD card. It was inside Annie's teddy bear. This was it. The evidence Hawk had died to protect. It contained everything. Proof of Julian's treason, his transaction records, his entire network. Croft took the card and secured it in an inside pocket. "Come back with me, Cole," he said, his eyes pleading. "The division needs you. The country needs you." I shook my head. "I'm tired, Director." I looked down at Annie, who was staring up at me with wide, curious eyes. "For 3 years, I've been wandering the globe, just looking for a quiet place to live out my days. I think I've finally found it." Croft was silent. He knew how deeply the betrayal 3 years ago had wounded me. I had lost my entire team, and a part of my soul had died with them. This little girl, Annie, was perhaps the only thing keeping me anchored to this world. "All right," Croft finally nodded after a long moment. "I won't force you, but the door to the 9th Division will always be open for you." He took a large manila envelope from one of his aides and handed it to me. "This is your new identity, and some compensation from a grateful nation. Markham's pension and honors will be taken care of as well. We'll make sure it all gets to you. Please, take care of Annie." I took the envelope and gave him a final, sharp salute. Mission accepted. Chapter 15. Months later. Riverbend, in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, clumsily trying to follow a recipe on my phone. Annie was sitting on the living room rug with a new teddy bear, giggling at cartoons on the TV. Her face was finally full of the innocent joy a child her age should have. With the compensation money from the government, I had bought this house and formally adopted Annie. I was her father now. We had a home. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to open it. Standing on the porch was Eva Rostova, dressed in civilian clothes. She'd cut her hair short. It made her look less like a warrior and more gentle. Well, look at Mr. Mom," she teased, holding up a bag of groceries. "Captain Rostova, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I said, letting her in. "It's deputy chief now," she said, placing the bag on the counter. "I got promoted. Congratulations." "I have you to thank for it," she said, her gaze softening as she watched Annie play. Several members of my team received commendations for that operation. Rizzo even made team leader. He earned it. We sat on the couch, a comfortable silence settling between us. "Julian Vance, the verdict came in," Eva said suddenly. "Yeah. Death penalty. No appeal." The hand holding my glass of water paused for a fraction of a second before I took a sip. "He got what he deserved." "He did," Eva sighed. "The network he was a part of, it went deep. I heard some very powerful people in D.C. went down because of that SD card. We talked for a while longer, the conversation easy and light. So what about you?" she asked, looking at me. "Is this it? You're just going to do this? What's wrong with this?" I asked back. "Nothing's wrong with it. It's great. It's just," she hesitated, "a waste of talent." I just smiled and didn't answer. The evening sun slanted through the window, bathing the living room in a warm, golden light. Annie came running over and jumped into my lap. "Daddy, I'm hungry," she said in her small voice. "Okay, sweetie. Daddy's making dinner right now." I picked her up and kissed her on the cheek. Watching us, a genuine, heartfelt smile spread across Eva Rostova's face. Perhaps this was the best ending for a soldier. To leave the world of bullets and blood behind and return to the simple, quiet warmth of a home. Outside, the sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors. A new story was just beginning.